First, download the practice Excel file named WTB New Company 2020 and open it to the Working TB tab, which is second in the list of tabs at the bottom of the worksheet. Next, look at the top left-hand corner of the worksheet. You should see the name of the company and the year-end for the current year. For our smallest businesses, the working paper file is usually only prepared once a year to facilitate the filing of the income tax return for the business. The three bracketed columns in red contain the total loss for the opening balance, the final column, and the prior year column, respectively. These values are calculated automatically based on the values in the columns beneath them, using Excel's built-in sum-if function. If you're interested in how the formula was built, put your cursor in the cell containing the value, and the formula box will be displayed. There are lots of videos on YouTube detailing how to create these formulas. The first three columns on the left-hand side of the worksheet contain the opening trial balance. This information is entered manually when the file is first set up. Depending on the circumstances, the values may have been obtained from the company's online accounting system, a trial balance received from their bookkeeper or controller, or in some cases it may represent the closing trial balance from the prior year. This variability gives the file preparer maximum flexibility to structure the file to suit virtually any company. The values in the Adjusting Entries column are taken automatically from the AJES tab using the sum-if function. The final column contains the total of the opening balance for a particular account, plus the debits and minus the credits in the Adjusting Entries columns. The prior column contains the final column values from the previous year, copied using the paste 123 command. The WP-Ref contains the reference number for the individual working paper document file. By convention, the number is filed under the company name and year-end. Each subdirectory within the year starts with a number from 0 to 9 and is stored in your computer's directory system. More about that later. The Jiffy number refers to the table stored in the tab of the same name. The Jiffy name column is populated automatically by using the VLOOKUP function and pointing it to the final red tab in the workbook. The AJES tab contains the adjusting entries created by the accountant in the process of completing the file. Column A contains the journal entry number. As you'll recall from Accounting 100, the sum of debits and credits must be equal for each entry. Just in case, we calculate a total for the debit and credit columns at the bottom of the worksheet. Column B contains the account number, which the accountant enters, copying the appropriate value from the account number in the Working TB tab. Using the VLOOKUP function, the spreadsheet should automatically return the account name in column C. Drafting adjusting entries requires practice. Students must build on what they learned about transactions in Accounting 100 to do this effectively. Students record transaction amounts and descriptions for each debit and credit part. They should provide a reference to any document used to provide supporting information in the REF column, a description in the description column, and their initials in the created by column. As soon as entries are recorded, the Working TB updates automatically. The Jiffy tab is simply a listing of standard codes from the General Index of Financial Information used by the Canada Revenue Agency. It was developed to ensure that financial information is reported as consistently as possible from one taxpayer to another. It is, in essence, a common chart of accounts for all taxpayers in Canada. The same table can be shared for all the companies that use Cloudware. Both the Working TB tab and the Pivot Jiffy tab use this table as a lookup table. The last tab we'll look at is the Pivot Jiffy tab. This tab is generated by inserting a pivot table while in the Working TB tab. Let's try a couple of exercises. First, we create a second pivot table by selecting all of the columnar data in the Working TB tab, and then going to the Insert command at the top of the worksheet. Next, we'll try to recreate the pivot table in a new worksheet. To format the pivot table, I select Display and Classic Pivot Table Layout. Then I went to the Design menu, to Subtotals, and the Do Not Show Subtotals. With a little luck, your new pivot tab looks like what you see here. If not, delete the tab and create a new pivot table using the same process we began a couple of slides ago. For our next exercise, we're going to test the calculations in our various tabs. We'll start at the Working TB tab and check the value shown in red above the word Final at the top of column F. Check the total by highlighting all the cells of the balance sheet accounts from account number 1000 to 3600 using your mouse. At the bottom of your worksheet, you'll see a sum that equals the number in red at the top of your column. Now we'll check the same accounts in one of your pivot table tabs. Okay. Last exercise. We'll record one final journal entry to record a missing sale to John Smith for $5,000 on account. The net income should have increased by $5,000. Okay. The loss decreased by $5,000, which is the same thing. So we'll check that the decrease in the loss has made it to our pivot table. First, we need to refresh the pivot tables, which is a little bit like old-fashioned posting. To do that, place your cursor in the pivot table until the Pivot Table Analyze menu item appears and refresh all sources. Now we can highlight all the balance sheet accounts and check that the sum matches the revised net loss calculated earlier.